Hey everyone, today I'm going to be doing my January wrap-up. I read 9 books for each prompt for the Bookworm's New Year Readathon, which was created by David, Noel, Mindy, and myself. For this video, I'm going to be starting with my lowest rated books and moving my way up into my highest rated books. If you want to know more of my thoughts on these books, check out my mid-month wrap-up. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. First up we have The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. I read this book for the top of your TBR prompt. I gave this book 3 stars out of 5 stars. I also read Animal Farm by George Orwell. I read this for the prompt Decade Reflection. I chose this book to reread because I remember liking it, and the second time around it was just as I remembered. It's about mistreated animals who rise up and kick their owner off the farm. The animals start building their own social hierarchy and things seem to be going well. They think they are finally free, but their freedom turns out to be an illusion, as some animals are designated as more equal than others. And we loop around again to the animals being again oppressed. It was a compelling satire about people in power taking advantage of the working class. I gave it 3 stars out of 5 stars. I also read Before She Disappeared by Lisa Gardner. I read this for the prompt A Book from a Different Genre. I chose to read this one because I want to read more mystery books. It's about a middle-aged woman named Frankie Elkin who solves cold cases of missing people on her own time. She's not getting paid for it. She's a regular civilian with no training. It's just something she likes to do to compensate for something that happened to her in her past. She's just really good at asking the right questions, and she obsesses over each missing person's case and uses it as her fix and replacement for alcohol. Her latest case is in Boston in a rough neighborhood called Mattapan, and she's trying to find this Haitian teenager named Angelique. So I thought this book had excellent pacing and I was hooked the whole time, trying to figure out all the clues, and when I couldn't, I just was trying to read faster, and everything made sense at the end, and I was really satisfied with the ending. The build up to the ending was fantastic. I read this in like 2 sittings. I gave this book 4 stars out of 5 stars. Then I have Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. I read this book for the prompt Get It Done. I gave this book 4 stars out of 5 stars. Then we have A Sky Beyond the Storm by Sabaa Tahir. I read this for the prompt Catch Up. I gave this book 4 stars out of 5 stars. Then I read This Is Your Brain on Parasites, How Tiny Creatures Manipulate Our Behavior and Shape Society by Kathleen, McAuliffe. So this was the most disgusting book I've ever read, and I mean that in a good way. I loved it. From the introduction to like chapter 5, we got to see a bunch of inconceivable things parasites do in order to complete their life cycles. After reading this book, I'm kind of paranoid now. The fact that parasites are so sophisticated in the way they have evolved scares me. The way they are able to manipulate other organisms, including humans, is just crazy because they can control the way we think, feel, and act. I just love the way the author showed us examples in each chapter of how different parasites have perfected their techniques to really get the most out of their hosts. They're called parasites for a reason. Once they're done with their host, they kick them to the side and move on with passing down their progeny. It was so interesting seeing how different parasites had very specialized ways in which they approached their invasions and how they went about tricking and controlling their victims. This was a super fascinating book. There's so many great examples of parasites taking over minds, and I kind of want to talk about them. I'll just tell you the example from chapter 1 just to demonstrate how sneaky and crazy these little microscopic organisms are. Okay, so there's this parasite called the trematode, and it infects ants. When it's ready to continue with its life cycle, it needs to get out of that ant and into the bile duct of a sheep in order to sexually reproduce. So it basically mind controls the ant and tells the ant to leave the colony at night time, and it instructs the ant to perch atop a blade of grass until a grazing sheep passes by. If this doesn't happen, then the ant returns to work until the next night. You can't have the ant exposed during the day because the sun will fry it, which would also kill the parasite. So that's just the tip of the iceberg and how parasites act. That's just the first chapter. The book gets gross in a good way. If this subject interests you, you should definitely pick this book up. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. Then we have What Would Frida Do? A Guide to Living Boldly by Ariana Davis. So I read this book to knock out the New Beginnings prompt. I gave this book 4 stars out of 5 stars. I also read Rhythm of War by Sanderson. I read this to fulfill the prompt No Time Like the Present. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. And finally, the last book that we have is Becoming by Michelle Obama. So this is her memoir, and she talks about her experiences throughout her life. This book is organized in 3 parts: Becoming Me, Becoming Us, and the last part is Becoming More. I took away so much from the entirety of the book, but the first part was the best. If you have not read this, you must. It's not even a political book. Of course she touches on it, but that's unavoidable. But it's just a fantastic piece of her life that was beautifully written, and it felt like I was able to see into her life and know how she became who she is. It's just a wonderful memoir. So the reason why I like the first part so much is because we get to see her growing up. It sheds light into her childhood, and she introduces us to her family, and through this lens we see her as Michelle Robinson as she grows up on the south side of Chicago. A question that often popped into her mind was her wondering if she was good enough. As she's trying to find her footing and get a handle on things, she realizes that the thing that will help her focus and achieve all her goals is to check things off a list. Pair her intelligence with her determination to prove to the world that she is in fact good enough, and you get a successful woman who puts all she has behind everything she does. The second part of the book talks about how she met Barack Obama, and she tells us what their relationship was like in the very beginning of them dating. It was so sweet, and we got to see the dynamics of their marriage and how they raised their 2 girls with the public eye right there watching their every move. The last part of the book focuses on Michelle Obama as the First Lady of the US. As the first African American in this role, she had such a positive impact in this position. Even though she doesn't like politics, she took this position very seriously and accomplished so much. She delivered a lot of eloquent speeches from her heart, and she spoke to young girls, and she advocated for kids to eat healthier. She spoke about race and inequality. Throughout the whole book, we see her transformation from a young black girl trying to find her voice to a strong, independent black woman who uses her voice to make positive changes. She's obviously very supportive of her husband, but she does not live in his shadow at all. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. Thank you to everyone who participated in this readathon. I had a lot of fun with these prompts. Subscribe to see more of my videos. Bye!